to it. This is the first episode of our podcast. I think we're going to call it the Sons of Thunder. Ooh. We got a Protestant and we have a Catholic. So we'll see how it goes. And Eric. Eric's like somewhere in between. So this is where our guests sit. They're on the interrogation table. So, we are in a basement because we're all great things and the seed is born. You might hear some rumbling above. If there are people walking above us, it's going to sound like the treads from the Killdozer. It gets awfully loud down here, so just embrace the spirit of the Killdozer.
Got a script.
Overall, what is your general attitude towards the Killdozer?
I think it's cool.
It's cool.
I think it's cool. I think, like, whenever I first found out about it, which I just somewhere on the internet I saw it, immediately I just thought it was kind of a daring story. Like, I wouldn't necessarily call it motivational at the risk of being flagged by the FBI. But I think I would say it's interesting to see somebody do something so powerful. One man to be so powerful, it cause so much damage, have such an impact. Mm-hmm. And even just like the engineering of the Killdozer itself was pretty like immaculate.
It's interesting because this was pure willpower. 18 months and not once did he back down.
Yeah.
I don't think most people can practice guitar for a month straight.
Yeah.
And there was never a doubt in his mind. Like, if I ever wanted to get anything done in my life, all I would need is the motivation of Marvin Heemeyer. Right. And I could probably conquer the world.
Yeah, well, and you read about how he, like, never went home. Like, he stayed at this old repair shop for that amount of time, and then is basically throwing his sewage out in the ditch, and you're like, all right, man, let's go. Living off the grid. I got a little bit different perspective. My main theme around this is the boomer psychology is what I call it, and that is any slight to me is enough to set me off, and I will destroy everyone's lives around me if I am slightly inconvenienced in any single way. And I think that comes from too much comfort in someone's life. Like, I think that when we live in America and we have all this comfort, it causes us to be addicted to it. And then whenever, something uncomfortable happens, like, oh, you got to put in a septic tank, you have to put in the sewer line, then it's like, no, no.
Yeah. So, let's talk about who Marvin was and some of the events leading up to the actual rampage so we can give people some context here. But, for context, on Friday, June 4th, Marvin Heemeyer jumped in his bulldozer and he set out on a 2-hour and 17-minute rampage. So he was born October 28, 1951, Castlewood, South Dakota. Currently has a population under 700, under 500 at the time. Served in the United States Air Force. He was an expert welder. In his tapes, he would like to say he had a champagne income with a beer taste. He was never married, but he had a girlfriend named Trisha who thought very highly of him. And then, he had hobbies. He was a part of, he started a group called the Thursday Crew, and they would go snowmobiling on Thursdays in the mountains. Yeah. And if you were really part of the crew, he would build you a custom bumper that would plow over 5 to 6 inch trees. So
yeah, do we know? So he was when he was in the Air Force. He was a mechanic, correct?
Yeah, he did welding in the Air Force.
Okay, that's what it was. Yep.
So that's where he kind of discovered like how good he was at welding.
Yeah,
and then decided to pursue it. Mm-hmm.
So he gets out of the Air Force and he decided that he wanted to take a 6-month vacation. So he said he's gonna hang out in Colorado, and then he found property in Grand Lake. So he bought that property.
Yep.
And in 1992, he has a friend named John Kleiner, and John is looking for some property, I believe, to open up an auto body shop. And John's, he is willing to bid up to $50,000, so he gives Marvin the money. Marvin goes to this FDIC auction, and he's bidding on the property. Now, little does he know, the former owner of the property, Cody Duche, is there as well. And Cody was given, I believe, he was given $50,000 by Gus Harris, his friend, to buy the property. So Marvin jumped in the bid at $35,000, and the bidding went on, and to his surprise, he got it for $50,000. So Cody stopped bidding because he couldn't go up to $51,000.
Yeah.
So after that, the sources on this vary, but people say that they had an altercation. Marvin said that, in his words, this guy was a fucking asshole. And now Cody and Gus, who were also there, they deny that there was any altercation whatsoever.
Yeah.
So, we don't really know, but that's what the story says. And then he gets the property, and his friend backs out for, environmental reasons is the source that I found. Now, mind you, there was, 2 septic tanks buried, and they weren't septic tanks, they were the concrete tanks for the truck. So
they kind of sounded like it was just like a cement mixer, just
they were
the ground.
They were buried cement mixers, basically.
Yeah.
And so the city reached out to them, and they said, you have to hook up to the water line, and it's going to cost you anywhere between $60,000 to $80,000. Whatever, Marvin. At first he agreed because he's like, I want to hook up to the water line, so the sewage is going to be much easier for me.
Yeah.
And then they threw the price at him, and he just said, I'm not going to do it.
It was like $60,000-$70,000 initially.
Yeah. So is it the water line or is it the sewage line? Because I had read that it was the sewage line.
It's the sewage line.
Okay, the sewage line.
It's the sewage line, yeah.
And I also read that they gave him the option to put in just a regular septic tank instead of putting in the sewer line. Was that an option? Okay.
That was an option, which he was within his rights. Well, this is what happened. So they said, hey, you need to hook up. Marvin was like, cool, it's going to cost a lot of money. And they dropped it for 2 years. So he was violating the law, but they just dropped it for 2 years. So
no fines, no nothing.
That's important to bring up. And I think the issue was people ask, well, why did they drop it for 2 years and then bring it up? And the truth is they were trying to work with him. Yeah. And there were a lot of citizens in the town that were complaining, saying, this isn't fair. Yeah. That, he doesn't have to pay these fines. But the big issue was he was dumping the sewage into the irrigation ditch. He was pumping it out, and it was ending up on his neighbor's property down the road. So. Yeah,
well, one thing I learned kind of going through this research is, dude, you can totally, ragdoll these city agencies, they don't want to have to be doing this. Yeah. And if you don't follow the rules, what are they gonna do, man? So.
They City of Portis fined my dad for having a boat parked on the grass next to his house because it wasn't on concrete. Yeah. And it's obviously the intention of the law is people don't put 40 cars in the front of their property that are all rusting out. Yeah. But
there's a single boat with a boat cover on it, parked next to the house. It looked fine. Yeah. But there's just got out of hand. Just getting fines for super annoying.
Just rolled over some concrete slabs at that point and call it a day.
Right. Yeah.
So in 1999, the town of Granby spot zoned land directly south of Marvin's shop. So if you don't know, spot zoning is essentially reclassifying land as it was intended for its original purpose. So, I don't know what the original intention was, but it was reclassified to, I think, Class B, which would allow a concrete plant. Yeah. And the issue with this is it's illegal to do that in the state of Colorado. Okay. But since nobody protested within 30 days, the town was well within their rights. Yeah. And it sounds like the whole thing was kind of kept under wraps from the town until after it had been spot zoned. Yeah. So that was a big issue for Marvin. And he learned that Cody bought the property and is intending to use it for a concrete plant.
Cody bought his property?
He bought the property that was spot zoned right next to his shop.
Okay, yep.
And, this is when Marvin starts going to these, he starts conjuring up the town and saying, hey guys, there's going to be a concrete plant. It's going to cause noise, pollution, dust. And he's got the town on his side for, the first portion of these meetings. But eventually Cody, for everything that Marvin brings up, Cody offers a reasonable plan to mitigate the concerns. Yeah. And now, depending on the sources, Marvin in the tape says that he followed none of the things that he said he was going to do, and then there are other sources that said that he actually went through with it. Yeah. But regardless, that was a big issue for Marvin. And I think the thing that really upset him was the fact that he didn't know that they spot zoned his property. Yeah. Yeah. And then he found out after he could take legal action. But he had a lawyer and he was suing, but it never really turned into anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I had read that Haymeyer starts suing the Doshef family. Yeah. And then at one point the Doshef family offers like like, hey man, we'll give you like $250,000 for this property, and then Marvin goes, I want $150,000 more than that.
Yeah.
And then the dough chefs go like, well, we can only pay $350,000. And then he goes like, oh no. And so he just like, Marvin seems pretty intransigent around this. I read that Joe Dough Chef offers to pay for the sewer line.
So the property he bought next to Marvin's shop, that property, originally he was going to have to run the sewer line through that property.
Yeah.
But Cody hooked up his own sewer line.
Yeah.
So it was just going to be that much shorter.
Yeah.
So Marvin only had to connect to the property neighboring his instead of building all the way out to the road at that point.
Yep.
So,
And that's like really important to understand about this whole thing, because clearly Marvin's not being very reasonable, because he buys this property for $50,000. He's not even getting fined for all this, crap that he's pulling. Literally crap.
Yep.
And then he gets offered like, what is that? It was $250 plus $150 or $300,000.
Yeah, they max out at $350,000.
Yeah, I mean, dude could literally make $300,000
It's like-
go buy his own property that's already connected to a sewage line. Like, I don't know. It just it doesn't make a lot of sense. If I were in his shoes, I definitely would have taken that deal.
right.
But we'll get more into that.
Well, it's funny because he agreed initially on the original price, and then he backed out and he got it appraised.
Yeah.
And he would get it appraised like 3 or 4 times and say it was worth more every time. He did end up selling the property for $400,000,
Yep.
which I believe he used those funds to build the dozer.
Yep.
He did.
So he sells the property and he says, I need to finish up here. I have some projects, so I'm going to stay on the property. I'm going to work on these projects, but the property is still the Duce's. Like, they own it now and they can do what they want with it. So at that point, he begins the construction of his dozer.
Yep. And it sounds like the construction starts in around 2003 from what I was reading, right? So he buys the dozer in California in 2002. Then when he decides to sell his property, he tries to, sell everything that's on his property.
Yeah.
And the bulldozer doesn't sell, and so this is where he takes it as a sign from God.
Right.
That he needs
Yes.
to build this Killdozer to
And
take out his frustrations.
how many of these bulldozers are even in circulation? Probably 5 or something. The market for this bulldozer is not very big.
Whistling Diesel, he tried. So when Whistling Diesel, I don't know if you saw the video, but he bought the same one.
Oh, I
and
haven't. Yeah, I did not.
he said, okay, there was one in North Korea, and then there was one in Montana.
Yep.
And he got the one in Montana. He had to convince the guy, but he took it, and it took them hours to get this thing running. And he said there was only maybe 4 in the world that were for sale.
Yeah.
They looked in Australia, they looked everywhere, but they took the vehicle to Granby, and they interviewed a lot of members of the town. But so far, and a lot of people really like Marvin. He was a good welder. He did authentic work. He helped a lot of people.
Well, yeah, and that's why when he starts this public campaign against the Dough Chef family, people seem to be on his side at the start, and then just as more and more time goes on, they'll have complaints oh, this will be this concrete plant will be a noise complaint, and then the Dough Chef family reassures everyone, and so it just seems at the start everyone is on Marvin's side, but then as more time goes on, then they start to side more with the Dough Chef family. So
Yeah. I think it's starting to slowly get exposed that Marvin's not really being reasonable. And originally some of his frustrations were reasonable and you could understand them, but then you'll start to see as we talk about it more, but it felt like he kind of had this idea in his mind that he was letting everything point to. So the Killdozer not selling, he was oh, there you go.
There you go.
I told you. I knew that I was supposed to do this. So.
He also took it as a sign from God that the fact that it made the clearance by 1 inch into the garage meant that he got the right one.
You'll love to see it.
Definitely the right one.
Yeah.
Because after he put all the armor on it, it didn't fit coming out, so he just destroyed the garage as he came out. So, yeah.
So he buys the dozer. And then he took a year armoring it. So he sold the property $400,000, and then he made an agreement with the person he sold the property to stay there for I don't know how long.
6 months was the initial agreement, but he ended up staying for 18.
Okay, yeah, and he just rented it out, but stayed on the property even though he didn't own it anymore. He was renting it. Okay. And during that time, since he got all that money, he was reinforcing the dozer, making plans for it or whatever, preparing for what would eventually be his rampage.
Yeah, and the final specs for this dozer sound pretty legit. Like you read it like concrete, steel reinforcements, 4-inch steel. That's
with concrete in the middle.
Yeah,
so concrete middle, 4-inch steel on both sides. A cage. How much did this dozer weigh?
It weighed like 80 tons.
Huh?
75 to 80 tons.
75 to 80 tons. So this is not like a small dozer.
No, this is...
Like when you look at photos of this thing with people next to it, like this thing is massive. It's literally insane.
Yeah, well, and it sounds like he has like he really thought this through. Like he has cameras on it with air pointed at the cameras.
Glass in front of him. He had monitors inside of the dozer to watch out the cameras. He had a giant tank of pressurized air sitting right next to him so he could blow the debris off the camera. He had weapons mounted, welded through the metal. He had like, what was he...
He had a 50 cal mounted on the back.
Yeah, he had.
That's why it was a tank.
He built in an air conditioning system so it'd be comfortable for him. I mean, the dude almost thought of everything.
Yeah, I mean, you read he had like weeks supply of food in there.
Yeah. Medicine, just in case he got shot. He could wrap himself up.
Yep.
So he had a lot.
He had 4 guns.
Yeah,
2 pistols, a 50 caliber sniper rifle, and then I think another rifle of some kind.
Yeah, he had a semi-automatic in the front.
Yep.
Or a 223. So he's got everything thought of.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And I don't know, you go through the rampage, but he busts out of this welding shop, and right next to him is a concrete plant. Now, not everybody knows this, but Cody didn't have the concrete plant insured.
Yeah.
So all that damage he was going to have to take as a total loss.
Yeah.
So right away, Cody jumped in a front-end loader. Well, they ran up to the dozer, and they were sticking steel pipes into the treads.
Yeah.
Couldn't stop it.
Yep.
Takes the front end, and he's trying to ram it, trying to somehow disable it. And every time he runs into it, the back tires just lift up. Eventually, he rams it so hard that he just falls forward, hits the glass, and he gets knocked out. And then Marvin actually makes his way to his next stop, And
as he was trying to stop it, so Cody got into one of his own bulldozers, way smaller, and tried to like upend it. But as he was doing that, Marvin fired, I think, like 15 rounds at him.
Yeah.
And there's bullet holes in like the whatever that thing is on the front of the dozer. There's all these bullet holes because he was shooting at him, and then Cody at some point gets knocked out from that.
Yeah, and then so I'm reading 13 buildings destroyed on his rampage. Yep. You said there was 2 hours 18 minutes. You said
2 hours 17 minutes.
2 hours 17.
It's really important to get right.
Yes. Yeah, and so obviously this thing weighs a whole ton, and so he's not able to fly this thing down the road and stuff like that.
No.
It moved 4 miles an hour.
4 miles an hour. So I watched some video of it, and you can see like these police officers just kind of striding with it, like, what are we gonna do? Trying to stop this thing. And so it sounds like a lot of the buildings destroyed were kind of owned by the city and by the town. I read that one of them was a library. The town hall was destroyed. So he's really kind of taking out his anger on these people who he's believed has slighted him over this time.
Yeah. So they actually found a list of people in his welding shop after the whole incident.
Yeah.
And another thing, the town. They initially denied this at first, but they considered calling in an Apache Black Hawk helicopter.
Yeah.
Apache.
Yeah, I had read that, and shooting like a Tomahawk missile at this tank, and I'm like, one, that would have been awesome. Right? Two, that probably would have been pretty bad for the city.
Yeah, they're like, this probably would have done more damage than the initial Killdozer rampage.
That it would have turned this thing into like a Ruby Ridge outlook instead of him just being crazy.
Yeah. I would be all for it though. Like in the moment, in the moment.
You'd be all for it. You're all for what? Like the missiles?
Yeah, the missiles straight to the Killdozer.
The footage would be crazy.
That's what I wouldn't even be considering anything. I'd be on the phone with the National Guard, guys. We're gonna need it now. What about the state? No, we're gonna need it now.
I saw that like the problem was that the National Guard didn't I don't know why, but they took too long to respond. So they got back like 3 hours later when the dozer was already, not running anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the city's concerns were like they didn't really know his end goal, and because this went on so long, they just didn't know what to think. Because he's shooting at one point. He was shooting at some propane tanks right next to an elderly care facility. And so, it's called Killdozer. Nobody died, which is insane.
Yeah.
But this dude definitely was not cautious about killing people.
Yeah.
He was not worried about whether or not people died. You can just see it in his actions. And I think they were just concerned, like, what is this guy, like, is he... They thought he might have explosives with him or something like that. They didn't really know what his goal was. They probably didn't even... I guess they found out it was Marvin after a little bit, but...
They knew, Cody knew right away.
Yeah.
Cody was like, it's Marvin. And Cody thought that Marvin was controlling it with a remote control because it doesn't look like you can get in or get out. There's no windows. Yeah. So I think one of the first things he did was he ran around the property looking for Marvin because he thought he was sitting up on a hill doing it or something. But most people in the town knew that it was Marvin.
That's kind of funny.
It is funny, like... And it's almost telling, like, did the town know that Marvin was being screwed over, or did they just know Marvin was pissed? So...
Yeah, and I was reading more on, like, the seemingly miraculous zero death. I was reading 11 out of the 13 buildings had people in them, like, minutes before Marvin destroyed them. Yeah. The library had children doing, like, a reading hour for the children. Yeah. So You read people who are on Marvin's side a lot, and they're like, "Oh, he didn't kill anyone, and he did it on purpose." I'm like, I don't know. It seems more like he got lucky.
Yeah. If God was involved in making sure nobody lost innocent lives.
Yeah. It was pretty much like as crazy as this whole thing is, I think the biggest miracle is just the fact that nobody even got hurt. Really.
Well, and you read that like you said, he was shooting at propane tanks and transformers. Like, dude, that's not a good combination, man.
Well, there's one thing he didn't think of. So he's got the 50 cal in the back, and he's got the Ripper. And if you watch the video, you can see that he keeps repositioning the dozer because the Ripper is sitting too high. He can't push it down enough to actually get a shot at the propane tanks.
Yeah.
He keeps hitting the Ripper itself. Yeah. So it's only a stroke of bad engineering that he wasn't able to actually blow up the transformers and the propane tanks. So, but I know in the tapes he says, like, if I get in the dozer and I don't make it out of the shop, God's will be done. He said if I could destroy the concrete plant, he said wherever I end up, he's like, I'll be satisfied.
Yeah.
Which, my big question is, go ahead.
That's all right. I just want to touch on one thing before we move into the rampage too much. While he's building the Killdozer, there's many things that, like we already talked about, he saw as signs from God, but I think there was one night where he was sitting in his hot tub and God revealed to him that he should go on a 6-month
snowmobiling trip with his
and he goes on this 6-month trip with his buddy snowmobiling because God told him to, like, take a break or take some rest. And
that's where the idea of the Killdozer was born. So he said he's in his hot tub just weeping, and he said God told me, you need to build this Killdozer. And obviously he wasn't 100% sure because he kept looking at outward things for signs. So he's like, okay, well, I couldn't sell the dozer. It fits into the garage. Everything is kind of going according to plan right now. Yeah. I mean, it's just... and he covered all his losses. So he didn't use all the money that he made from the property for the dozer because he transferred, I think, almost all of it to his father. And he did it in $50,000 increments. Yeah. And then he had his father put his kids in the will, the money so it'll be his brothers. Okay, yeah. And that way the town couldn't go after the money. So he looked out for his brothers because he probably knew that that was going to be his last ride.
Yeah. Which is crazy too, because you're like $400,000 in this economy that probably wouldn't even buy the bulldozer.
Would he buy it for like $17,000?
I think it was 16, and I'm like, man, that is really cheap. Actually.
Yeah, it is.
It's a good deal.
But that's back in like 2002, so it's, you buy a house for like, a couple nuts.
Oh yeah.
Was that the same snowmobiling trip where he, like, saved his buddies from an avalanche?
Those were just the typical Thursday rides. Okay. So they would just go out there and they would ride for miles and miles. And he actually built a custom, not a grill for the snowmobiles, but he built a custom fire pit in the summer, and they would meet up by the pit, and they would have like a grill for all the gloves, so they can dry out their gloves, and then they could cook under it.
Yeah.
So they hang out up there. But yeah, there was an incident where they were all on the snowmobiles, and there was an avalanche.
Yeah.
And a bunch of the riders got stuck under the avalanche, and they were able, Marvin and everybody was able to save their lives, and they were so nonchalant about it too. He's just like, oh yeah, we saved everybody. Then they go up and they just have some food, and then afterwards they go to a bar, which I can't remember the name of it. I think it's a Mexican bar. And they go hang out and they talk about how everybody almost died, but they're just kind of chilling.
Literally like the ideal scenario. Like, I just want to go snowmobile with the boys, save their lives, and just go hang out.
Right.
Because people were close. Like, one guy was in there for 12 minutes, and he's like, once you're buried in an avalanche for over 15 minutes, the chances of you surviving are so low.
Yeah.
He got him out under 15 minutes, but you would think that they would just all head back and go to the hospital and make sure everyone's good. They're like, nah, let's go cook some brats. Talk about it.
Yeah, different generation.
And then they were sitting up there after the avalanche, and out in the distance they saw another place they had been riding a few hours prior, and they watched another avalanche just completely collapse the entire mountain.
Yeah.
So pretty dangerous stuff, but a lot of fun.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
So back to the rampage. I think one thing Eric was mentioning is just like how miraculous it is that nobody died. One story I remember reading about was, I think it was one of the dough chefs, or it was one of the houses that Marvin destroyed, but this woman was taking a nap in her house, and Marvin was actively on her way there, on his way there, and she got a call from her son. He's like, "You need to get out of the house right now. You need to go." And yeah, she like got up and left. I think, I don't know, a few minutes later, he comes and destroys the rest of the house. It's kind of like, I'm trying to think like what it reminds me of.
She was the widow of the former mayor.
Okay.
And he had beef with him, so he had beef with her basically.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was pretty miraculous too. And so what? He hit how many locations?
13.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it's really kind of crazy because there was like no stopping this thing. You read that they're like throwing flashbangs down the exhaust pipe.
Yep.
They're shooting at it, trying to stop it, and there's just no stopping this thing.
Yeah. One guy climbed on top of it and shot into the air vent. He unloaded an entire clip into the air vent, and nothing happened.
Yep.
And he even covered it with grease.
Yeah, right before he set out on the rampage, he covered the entire thing in grease with the intention of making it so people couldn't climb it.
Yeah.
So Cody couldn't get out of that first. But.
It's crazy. If this dude put his engineering brain into just, hooking up a sewer line, he could have built it himself. Exactly.
He could have just done it. That's why it feels like bro just wanted to destroy the city.
It's funny because the one thing I forgot to mention about the sewer line is he also had to race it too. That's why it cost so much.
Yeah.
To prevent backlogging.
Yep.
But I don't know. Yeah, a little overboard. A little extreme.
A little extreme.
Just a tiny bit.
Yeah.
I support the idea of it. The idea of the Killdozer is big government is crushing the small man. Small man fights back, but that's really not the actual story. It's more of a petty squabble between him, the mayor, and citizens of the town.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And so it looks like he's, after this 2 hours, 17 minutes, he drives into a hardware store, it sounds like, with a basement. The basement collapses because of the weight, and that's basically when he's unable to back out, unable to go forward. He's kind of stuck in this basement.
Right.
And Marvin ends up shooting himself, leading to his death, and that's basically when the rampage ends.
Yep.
And at the same time that he got stuck, the engine was overheating, probably because the bulldozer's not meant to have like
20
extra
tons.
ton of steel on top of it. And so you see in the footage like all the smoke just billowing up. And so the engine overheated, actually stopped running once he got stuck. And so he probably got the idea like, okay, it's over.
Yeah, end of the line here, guys.
Yep.
Yep.
They, a lot of people say they shot the radiator and it busted the line. It sounds like so those are supposed to, not have like 20 tons of steel on it.
Right.
And the engine couldn't get the proper airflow into it.
Yeah.
And, I think the leading theory, or maybe what the FBI posted, was that it overheated and one of the lines actually busted because of how hot it was.
Yeah.
And Marvin knew that would happen, so he had airflow into the engine. He built like custom fans to try to cool off the engine. Then you could see in the video he has a chute, so all the smoke and the steam can come out. But yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, so he shoots himself, or one of the SWAT members overhears just a single shot come from inside the dozer. And I think they did some very careful examination. They were a little concerned about like booby traps, explosives, or something like that, or even like Marvin busting out and just doing like a shootout or something.
Yeah.
And so they did some careful examination of the dozer and then decided it was time to get in there. So they had to use like a torch to weld or get through the metal, and they used a crane to pop the door off on top of the latch. They get in, they find Marvin dead. They find like a week's worth of supplies, 4 guns. I don't know if there's anything else.
Well, no medical supplies, but not only that, but before they busted in, they put explosives on the dozer.
Yeah.
And after those, if he was alive, he wasn't alive anymore after that. And then they're like, okay, this thing probably isn't loaded, but they didn't know for sure. But they got in there, and they opened it up.
Didn't it take like 48 hours for them to get in there?
It took a really long time to get in there.
It took like 2 days.
Yeah, it was quite the project for sure. And I read in the book. Now this book was written, obviously not now, but it said that financially the city is not supposed to recover until 2025.
Oh wow.
Which is next year.
Yeah.
We're talking about it now.
Yeah, this is 22 years after the incident, so yep. A lot of damage.
Yeah.
That's a lot of damage.
That's a lot of damage.
Well, my question here, this is a big question. What would have to constitute God wanting Marvin to do this? What conditions would have had to have been met for this to be inspired by God?
I mean, I think that I don't know if I'd make any claims about it being inspired by God, but I'd rather talk about just God's authority over everything. And he's just sovereign. Like, realistically, there's nothing that's out of God's control, and you can view this as either his like active will or his permissive will. So permissive being he allowed it to happen without any like active moving of pieces or whatever, or like active will would be like he actually, like he did make sure the dozer fit in that shed just by 1 inch, and he made sure the dozer didn't sell, and he actually did speak to Marvin or something like that. So I think like with what we know about God, what we believe, like God is in control of everything too. So God did allow this to happen. So it was at least part of his passive will for this to happen, because nothing's out of God's control.
Right.
So I feel like what we're going to talk about is more like
I'm wondering
like a part of God's active will.
I guess I'm more wondering what would have had to happen to Marvin in order for it to be an actual injustice, in order for God to have been more involved in this is my perfect will. And I think the real question that I'm asking is, if the official narrative of the big government versus the small man was the true story, would there be justification for it? Would he be more justified?
Yeah, so it kind of sounds like we're all at the position that this wasn't inspired by God, and you're more wondering what would have had to have happened to Marvin for it to have been inspired by God. Yeah, and I think that is more of a, if you get like people like city officials or government officials like coming to him, like throwing him in jail. Like I read that his fine is only like $2,500. Is it $2,500 a day or?
Yeah, so it's $100 a day.
Okay.
And he goes in and he makes a check out. He makes a check out to them, to the cowards and liars department. Is what he writes on the check. I believe he wrote the number wrong, so they sent it back to him, and he was livid. But when he came back the second time, I think he tried to pay $3,300 because he was going to pay in advance for days he was planning on fining for. So I don't know whatever happened with that whole thing, but the clerk said that he was really rude to him and he was threatening, and it's tough because then there's people out there who are like, no, he was the nicest man. He wasn't mean to a single soul. Like the sheriff in the documentary. He's like, I've never met anyone who spoke badly about Marvin.
Yeah.
So it's real. It's complicated. I'm sure there's a lot that we're never going to know about the story. And I'm sure we can all agree that there are some instances where he was kind of screwed over, but there are also instances where he took things way out of proportion.
Yeah. And I think that, obviously God does put rulers in place for us here on earth.
Right.
And those rulers have authority over us, and we're called to respect these authorities.
Yeah.
And I get it if, these authorities are asking you to, sacrifice your child or, to, worship idols or something like that. But, when these authorities are asking us to hook up sewer lines for the good of our community, that's obviously something that they are justly, have the right to ask us to do. And so I think that the point where he would actually be inspired to God if, these government authorities are asking him to do something that's obviously something that goes against God's commands.
Right.
So,
right.
That would be my line.
Yeah. I think there's this interesting idea of redemptive suffering. It may not have been inspired by God, but it almost seems like there was almost a greater good brought out of a bad situation.
Yeah.
Because usually that's how God works.
Yeah.
The story of Job comes to mind, right? He goes through this valley of death, absolute darkness and depravity. He can't feel God anymore.
Yeah.
But then out of that, he ascends to new heights as he was previously. And the people, there's mixed reactions, but I was watching some of the people in Granby, and they're like, we got a new town hall, we got a new library.
Yeah.
The guy who wrote this book, he made a lot of money writing books, and he propelled his news career. So there's a lot of maybe it is not appropriate to call it redemptive suffering, but there was certainly good brought about from it because the town was able to come together, they were able to heal, and it brought tourism in, which, I'm not saying that justifies the actual event, but it's certainly worth noting that there were good things brought from it.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing that you read all throughout the Bible is just, God uses bad things and he makes good come from it. So
that's true.
I think the problem with this whole situation, what people are trying to think is Old Testament, people wrong God, do something unjust, and then God opens up the earth and swallows up, a bunch of people. I think people are trying to, or at least in Marvin's mind, or the devil's advocate position would be isn't this Old Testament times, they're wronging Marvin, they're doing unjust things, and so God has his just way by coming down and destroying the town through Marvin,
right?
Which
God's will be done through me.
Right, that's what he said. I don't know, I think some of his actions really portray where his heart was really at. One of his quotes, his famous quotes, I have a sticker on my laptop.
Sometimes
reasonable men have to do unreasonable things. So he thinks of himself as reasonable. He thinks this is, this has to happen. Obviously he really does feel wronged. But I think he just had I think Eric's right with the boomer psychology. He's like, I can't believe they're doing this to me. Bro was basically a big Karen. Alright? He's like, I can't believe they're doing this to me. I have to fix this or whatever. And instead of calling the manager, he buys a bulldozer. But it's the same thing.
Yeah.
One thing this is funny, but he started his, I don't know if you know this, but he started his own newspaper company.
I did not know that.
And when I say his own newspaper company, the man was standing on the side of the street with these oddly printed brochures. And he was writing about how the town was wronging him, and he was writing about how Sky High News was a bunch of liars. And one of the guys who worked at Sky High News was walking, and he saw Marvin, and Marvin was like, here's a paper, we're getting the real truth out there.
Yeah.
The guy looks at it, his name is Cease. And Marvin keeps calling him Cece. He's not listening to him. He's like, okay, Cece. And he was handing it out to tourists and people just walking and trying to just give them these papers.
Yeah.
So he was certainly trying to make an active effort to get whatever he perceived as the truth out there to the town. I think it was called Granby Lake News or something like that, because he was from Granby Lake.
Yeah.
But
I think the biggest part of this that we haven't touched on too is he recorded over 9 hours of tape where he gave his perspective on everything that was happening. He told the stories of what was going on, where a lot of this information comes from, and you read it or you listen to it. I listened to I think the first 4 of them, and he does genuinely sound like a normal guy, but you do get this like this kind of tone where he seems a little bit like he's got a big ego, or
yeah, there's a lot of stories. There, for example, when they would go snowmobiling together, there's a guy on the crew that overtook him, and Marvin quickly overtook the guy again, and then he didn't speak to him for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
That's the unofficial story.
Yeah.
And there's in the documentary Trad, one of the kids was like, if you beat Marvin, he would always find a way to overtake you or come back with a more powerful snowmobile.
Yeah. So it definitely sounds like he's struggling with pride there.
Yeah, absolutely.
pride comes before the Killdozer.
Yes, it does.
Yep.
And it doesn't help that he was really, really good at what he did. Like, he was a great welder. So, I mean, he definitely had things in there stoking his pride.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And one thing that I wrote down is you talked about he's, like, weeping in the hot tub.
Yeah.
And to me, like, it sounds like this man is being tormented by demons. Like,
yes.
And it sounds like he's struggling with pride. He has all these anger issues. You know, he might be being tormented by demons. We're told that Satan can come as an angel of light, and so he thinks that God's telling him to do this. You know, one of the quotes I have here is, "God prepare me to carry this cross. I believe so, and I'm carrying this cross willingly now." He's making himself as like this Christ-like figure.
Yeah.
We do know that, you know, Jesus tells us to carry our cross.
He carried his Killdozer.
Yeah, but like that cross is supposed to be you suffering, not you taking your anger out.
Yeah, doesn't it? You know, justice belongs to God.
Yeah.
You know, like let him have that. And I think, so like if I tell you, both of you, I'm gonna have you do this real quick. Look around this room real quick. Just look around. See how many brown things you can find. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now look at me.
Okay.
Tell me how many red things you saw.
Right.
You were looking for brown stuff. You didn't see the red. Marvin's looking like he wanted to see God telling him to build a Killdozer.
Yeah.
It wasn't that he was unbiased or he was like looking for everything, trying to see what God was saying to him. Dude clearly wanted to see Killdozer is God's redemptive plan for my life.
Yeah.
And so that's why when it fits into the shed or when it doesn't sell, he's like, oh, it's clearly a sign from God. And I think it's a good example of what a lot of people do. It's like he was not being humble with it. He wasn't like, I don't think he was praying or asking God for wisdom or guidance or anything like that. He was just like, he wanted this in his heart already, and so he's trying to make God fit into the picture with it.
Yeah.
When really it does not seem like this had anything to do with God.
Yeah, I mean, you listen to his tapes. He's not quoting scripture or anything, so.
You know, you have the subtle bodies of angels and devils working against you. And I think that's more the consciousness. Like, you have, you know, diabolic oppression from demonic entities, but you also have encouragement from angelic forces and spiritual principles as well.
Yeah.
But there's a third, and our own mind is a thing. We have a conscience, we have our own thoughts. Seems to me that it was a little bit of a blend between, maybe there was some diabolical oppression, but it also seemed like he already made up his mind.
Yeah.
That he was just going to look at anything that seemed to line up.
Yeah.
There were a few very interesting things that he did say in the tapes. One of them was, he said when they came to look at the property, I think after he sold it or before he sold it, I don't know. He said that the people expecting it couldn't see the Killdozer.
Right.
And he had it covered with tarp. So I believe he told them that, you know, it was a project he was working on. And he came up with this thing. He's like, yeah, I'm doing research for Harvard. I'm working with a professor. And I'm experimenting with coolant lines to cool dozers down faster.
Yeah.
Which he came up with like a really, really elaborate.
Yeah.
I feel like he didn't need to.
Also, it's not like these people are going to come onto the property and be like, I think he's building a Killdozer. Destroy the town. I think that's what's going on here. Nobody's going to come to that conclusion.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, even if they, if I were to go on someone's property and see a bulldozer, I'd be like, oh, that's just a bulldozer. I'm not going to assume that.
It also depends on how far along he was, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The first thing he did when he bought it was he actually parked it in front of his shop facing the concrete plant. It's kind of like a little bit of an intimidation for Cody.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody would have ever have thought that he was going to use it to destroy the town.
Oh, yeah.
But he also said in the tapes that, let's see here. I remember what I was going to say. Okay, he said that, it keeps slipping my mind.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, even if I saw this bulldozer built with all this metal and concrete on it, still my brain's not going to go to oh, he's going to destroy all these buildings and harm all these people or whatever, trying to cause a destruction. I'd probably just be like, that's an interesting art project.
Right.
Oh, it's got guns in it.
That's
okay,
cool.
Thank you. He was talking about how basically everything he prophesied came to pass, which was, he's like, this is going to be national. People are going to see what happens when you push the small man too far. And he got that right, which was interesting. He got the fact right that he was going to get out there, destroy the town, and that people were going to take his side. And he said, people are going to see that this was an act of God, and people are going to take my side, and that's exactly what happened. And I know he sent out the tapes to his brother before he actually took off.
Yeah.
And then, his brother got the tapes, and then eventually the FBI got them. But, at that point, it's too late,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, so one thing that I have written down, it's one of my favorite quotes, is anger is the devil's cocaine. And what I mean by that is when no one ever feels like they're unjustly angry at something. I have written down, it will make you think that you are righteous while you're doing the will of Satan.
Yes.
And so, that's even in my own life. I get angry at my wife or something like that. And I'm like, man, I'm right about this. And it's like, even if I am right, it's not just for me to be this angry about something. And so I think this applies to Marvin, where he's this angry. He's feeling like he's righteous. He's feeling like he's doing the will of God. And he goes on this rampage, almost kills these people, destroys these buildings. What? Why would God want you to do that?
Right.
If you just take a step back, think I'm serving I don't think he's an actual Christian, so I don't think he would be able to do this. But if he takes a step back, I serve a just God. Why would God want me to do this? It just seems that he's egotistical, he's angry, and he's prideful, and that is exactly the concoction that the devil needs to destroy.
And this is also a really good lesson on the importance of having a community of believers.
Yes.
He didn't have a voice of reason.
Yep.
It's I would hope that other Christians would discourage him from bulldozing the town.
Yeah.
But he kept all this to himself.
Yeah.
If he had been active in a body of believers, or if he shared these thoughts with someone, he could probably hash it out, get his emotions out, and I'm sure any reasonable person would discourage him from doing that.
Yeah.
So he needed a voice of reason, and he didn't have one.
Yeah.
So
that's exactly it.
I have right here, I tried to find the most similar biblical story to Marvin.
Let's go.
Yeah. So Judges 16, Samson, a judge in ancient Israel, experienced betrayal and injustice. So after being deceived by Delilah, he lost his strength and was captured by the Philistines. So in a final act of retaliation and seeking justice, Samson pulled down the pillars of the Philistine temple, killing himself and many Philistines.
Yeah.
And that's the closest thing that I could find.
Yeah, that actually is a pretty good symbol.
Yeah. I think we could do the comparison, what's similar and what's not, because that was actually an act of God.
Yeah.
What would happen with Samson, whereas this, I don't know, we can look at the difference.
Because, Samson's driven by personal vengeance. So like it reflects the themes of frustration, betrayal, and a desire for justice.
Well, and even in the story of Samson, Samson's in that situation because he keeps on letting this sin tempt him in his life. Like he's spending this night with Delilah, who I think is a prostitute. And it's like, dude, you're a judge, and you're telling this, this prostitute where you're getting your strength from, and he keeps on lying to her. He knows that Delilah's trying to kill him because, he lies to her like 3 times. And then Delilah's like, and it keeps on accusing Samson of lying to her. And I'm like, I think that is a really good symbol because,
she's kind of like the snake in the garden almost. It comes before the fall.
Oh, yeah.
Like the temptation that nags at you until you finally give in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of similarities. I like the fact that, Samson too, like, destroyed an entire temple and pulled down the pillar. So this was... Go ahead.
A really key part to know about that story, too, is I can't remember the name of the people who came and took Samson. The people who overpowered him or whatever, but, like, when Delilah actually did cut his hair and render him powerless, the people who came and, like, they gouged his eyes out, they took him to be, like, a slave. When he was in the temple, these people were all standing on top of the temple. And so Samson actually prayed to God. He's like, please let me have justice against them, like one final, bow of strength just to right the wrong against me. And so then he, our pastor just preached about this recently, which is kind of cool, but like he stands in between these 2 pillars and he pushes them out with his hands, kind of in like a sign of the cross. And so he brings the temple crashing down. All the people who wronged him die. He died as well. And, like, that does feel like a genuine act of God to me. I think Samson is a little different than Marvin because...
Samson is what Marvin wanted to be. Samson is what we wanted Marvin to be. That's the story we were all seeking out of the Killdozer. He's just a modern-day Samson, but he's not, unfortunately.
Well, and the story of Samson is a great... view on God's redemptiveness. Like, Samson's had his hair cut, and then there's a verse where it goes, but his hair started to grow back.
Yes.
But God's always there.
Yes.
And that's... And Marvin, I don't think, had God on his side.
No. No, I don't think so either. I think he did a lot of good things. He helped a lot of people. He was really involved in his community. A lot of people spoke highly of him. And it's one of the things with this whole situation is so easy to jump sides. I read this book, and I'm like, Marvin was crazy. I can't believe he did what he did. He was not justified in the slightest, which is where I'm at now. Or then I'll listen to the tapes, then watch a documentary. Because if you think about it, 90% of the info, 90% of the podcasts out there are taking Marvin's side. Most of the things you read or say are like, oh yeah, Marvin was totally reasonable, he was totally justified. And, there's Facebook groups, there's websites, this June 4th it's going to be the 20-year anniversary of Killdozer, by the way. So, there's probably going to be some sort of thing that happens. Maybe people will show up. Maybe Whistling Diesel's going to armor it and just bring it through the town for the sake of it. But
town members are like, no, not again.
He brought it in right after he bought it, and he parked it on the in a lot on the side of the main street. And the cops came in and they were talking to him, and he's recording. He's got the camera in the passenger seat, and the cop just goes, at first I didn't agree with it, but I get it now. I get it.
The cops were cool about it. I think everybody in the town is actually pretty cool with the whole thing.
And the guy who wrote the book, he came out to see it, and he was like screaming at him. He's like, buy the book, buy the book. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, honestly, I think as a Christian, there's some good lessons to learn here. I didn't think we were going to sit down and kind of reflect on, like, what can we learn from Marvin Haymeyer? But now that I'm sitting here, I'm like, it is actually a good story to kind of think about, like, that anger, that pride. Like, he was not really reflecting on the Word of God. He wasn't really reflecting on, what God was trying to say to him or anything. He had some image made up in his mind, and I think we can all kind of do that, even in little ways, and just, like, kind of have an expectation of how things are gonna go,
Right.
And kind of feel justified in that sense, like God owes us this, or like we deserve this. When in reality, like, have we really gone to God to ask Him for His will? Because if I'm being honest, most of the time when I think God is actually working in my life, or like actually having His will be done in my life, isn't really something that I planned or necessarily wanted, even though it is a good thing. And so, like, for Marvin, this is clearly something he wanted to do. It's clearly like a sinful response to something that was very frustrating in his life.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that it was like, I don't know, I think for us, like, what in your life are you feeling justified about that you really shouldn't, or things that you are assuming God is telling you to do that you really haven't taken some time to reflect on, and to ask about?
It's kind of a macrocosm of the small things in our life.
Yeah.
It's just that, but exemplified. And, it's going to sound funny, but in all of us lives a Marvin Haymeyer, right?
Yeah.
In all of us lives that spirit of pride.
Right.
And if we allow that spirit to dictate us, symbolically, we will destroy buildings in our life too.
Yeah.
So that's important to recognize.
Yeah.
And I think the main thing here for Marvin is pride.
Yeah.
It's pride when he makes $400,000.
Yeah.
Dude's set. Go somewhere else. Go to a different town. Go back to California where you bought your dozer. Go. He already broken up with his girlfriend at the time. He's got no family there. His dad passed away from cancer. So like he's got the world in his hands. He can sell all of his shops. He can do whatever. But no, it's my way or the highway. Basically, I'm set. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I think in some ways it's kind of like a slap to the face, because I think when we look over it, he probably wanted to kill people. And I'm almost just imagining God, like, you couldn't even kill people. Like, you're so angry and so mad at all these people who did you wrong. Like, you couldn't even kill them with all this effort and whatever, all this miraculous thing. Like, you can't do anything more than I can. I'm always in control. I'm always, making the rules and being...
As everything is part of... Anything that happens is part of God's permissive will.
Yeah.
So, I can't, flag out all the details, but nobody died.
Yeah.
And, that's probably, except him, but that's probably the most God was involved. Yes, people were warned, people were called, but God is still ultimately the orchestrator of everything. He allows everything to happen. So He allowed those calls to go through. He allowed the people to get out of the building in time. We're still agents of free will, so it was done on their own accord.
Yeah.
But, maybe God didn't allow the dozer to come out 2 hours later.
Right.
Because that would have actually caused problems. You can hear the spirit of the dozer right now. The spirit of the dozer. So, he's it is definitely part of God's permissive will that more so maybe between permissive and perfect will that people didn't die. I know that God interjects. He interjects to certain degrees based off the situation.
Yeah.
But He allows us to learn for ourselves, and He wants us to be agents of free will. The word prayer means to ask, and lots of times we pray and we expect God to do something for us.
Right.
But sometimes we don't consider that we are the ask. We are the answer to the own prayer that we're praying. God help my family, or God help this person. But you are the prayer. You can go and help that person as well. You can go and take that action.
Yeah. And
I think God works through subtle bodies and notions as well. He's just often quieter. But you have the Bible. You have a conscience. You can go and do these things on your own too.
Oh, yeah.
He's not going to puppet you the entire way through. And, when there's course correction that's absolutely needed, God will intervene when it's necessary. But He'll never give us anything beyond what we can handle. And, people really misinterpret that, saying it's really, you're never going to get anything beyond your salvation. There's never going to be anything that can take you away from His salvation. The devil can't pull you out of Christ's arms. Only you can jump out.
Yeah.
So there will never be anything in our lives that's going to cause us to lose our salvation beyond our control. There's theology about the mark of the beast and all that sort of thing, but as far as free will goes, it's important to remember that.
Yeah.
I think, too, one thing that we tend to do is just, not take as much responsibility as we should. I think kind of what you're drawing on with free will.
I have some students in the youth group who will come up to me and be like, I can't decide if God's telling me to text this girl or to not text this girl. I'm like, just decide what you're going to do. I don't think God's telling you either way. You're just texting a girl, bro. And God gave me this hand, right? Mm-hmm. And I can nurture others. I can steward my life. I can drive responsibility. I can do good things with it, but I can also take this hand and I can smack you across the face. Right. And that doesn't mean God gave me this hand to smack you across the face. That doesn't mean God wanted me to do that, but He did give me the free will. And I have a good tool, something God intended for a good purpose that I can either use for good or I can twist and make it evil.
Right.
God gave you a bulldozer. He gave you steel and concrete and all these things, and maybe I'm not saying this is actually what happened. Maybe He wanted you to build and do good with it or whatever, and instead you twist it. You make it into this machine of destruction to you just destroy towns, lives, bring debt upon families, and do this very prideful act where I don't know. I think Marvin's kind of fallen subject to this thing where he's like, I think God's telling me to do this, or I need God to give me an answer or whatever. I'm like, do you really need God to give you an answer on whether or not you should destroy your town? Right. Do you really need God's input on that? Isn't it clear enough? Don't destroy your town and don't try to blow up a propane tank next to an elderly care facility. Right. I don't think God wants you to do that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. He needed a voice of reason and he didn't have one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good reflection too. Surround yourself with some people who can tell you when you're being an idiot. Yeah,
we're gonna all build our own killdozers in our life, but doesn't mean we're gonna use them. Uh-huh. We have that potential in all of us, but we need someone to say, "Don't go and do that thing." Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can kind of look at it this way: see the killdozer as the potential for the thing that can bring you down, for the thing that can cause the destruction. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it can act as a vehicle for sin. Right. That's kind of the way I see it. Mm-hmm. But it's also important to recognize that the objects themselves aren't inherently evil. A bulldozer armored with steel, there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't do anything. Everything we interact with, even our own body, are just vehicles through whether we choose good or evil. Mm-hmm. So that's important to reflect on that as well. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You have anything else you want to add?
I don't think I do.
I got nothing.
Marvin Heemeyer was crazy. We do not stand by him. We do not support him. This was just a thought, just a conversation to reflect on what happened.
But man,
he hears a Marvin Heemeyer apologist. I promise.
But man, it would have been awesome.
That speaks for himself.